Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our Asian philosophies. And today we continue our journey to the Feng Youlan's writing on a short history of Chinese philosophy. Today we are dealing with chapter 13, Xunzi. The title is, what's the date? Okay, the realistic win of Confucianism. Okay, Xunzi. Okay, so let me share my screen, and then, as usual, I'm going to share the schedule we are doing, and then today last time, I think 2-3 weeks ago, we talked about the Yin Yang school, and then today we talk about Xunzi chapter 13. Next week, September 21st, and SK Sashi is going to continue on the Bhagavad Gita review, the third review, Devotion, God, and the Ego. And September 28th, I'm going to present chapter 14, the legalism, Han Fei, or somebody call it Han Fei Zi. Okay, so that's the schedule we are going. And to end of September, we finish the 6th school. Then I will take 1 or 2 weeks break, and then we will continue. Okay, so go today's chapter. Okay, a short history of Chinese philosophy by Feng Youlan. And today is chapter 13. The title is The Realistic Win of Confucianism, Xunzi. Okay, so realistic win. Okay, let's remember this word, and then it's compare. The reason Feng Youlan make this title is compared to chapter 7, which he called idealistic win of Confucianism, which is Menzi. Okay, so just put this one in mind, and you may agree or disagree. We will see in the to the end of today's presentation. Just quickly about the book we are talking about. This book is A Short History of Chinese Philosophy. I think the short means the concise, okay, condensed, okay, by Feng Youlan. It's written in 1947 for the lecture in the University of Pennsylvania. And then the reason I choose this book is I find out this book is very well by Feng Youlan. Two key things. Basically, he rewriting the history of Chinese philosophy from a modern perspective. Modern means Western. Okay. Second, developing a reconstructed version of Chinese philosophy that could respond to modern situation. I think that's the reason he wrote this one, and I find out this book is very well written, and only problem is the spelling is not using modern pinyin spelling. So okay, so I have to change it a little bit. And the entire book contains 28 chapters. So right now we are on chapter 13. Okay, that's today. And I put all this one in the recording. And then, so if you go to the meetup page, you will see the playlist. And then you also can see the PowerPoint presentation. So you are welcome to go back to look at the previous video and PowerPoint presentation. And the book is available online. So go to the meetup page. They have the free PDF version, and you can read it. And you can download, or you can go to Amazon to buy it. It's still available in English version and also in Chinese version if you prefer to read Chinese. Mark, please.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that the link to the book on your webpage, at least the way it downloads on my phone, the reader has there's a visual thing, but there's also an audio thing. So you can listen to it read, and it's got several different speeds. So I went through the chapter a couple times just listening to that, and that was really helpful for me.
So can you send the audio thing and then to me, and I can post also. So I think that will help.
It's well, I'll try to figure it out, but all I did was I clicked on your link and it loaded it onto my phone in a way that it would read it. So I don't know if that's software that's on my phone or what that is, but I'll try to
Okay.
figure it out and let you know.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mark. Okay. And that's a good information. And because today a lot of people will like to listen the audio book instead of read it. Yeah. Good information. So total is a 28 chapter. Look like we will finish somewhere chapter 16, 17 this year. And of course, I have a commitment to finish them. So probably before next summer, I mean 2025, we will finish the entire book. So anyway, okay, China has long history, and right now we're still in a very ancient time. Okay, so in this period of time, we call the warring state, and today we deal with Xunzi is around 300 BCE. Okay, remember that's 2,300 years before us, before now. And that's important. And I'd like to draw important information for today's section and the next section, because during this time, there's not one China. That's not a country. They have the many, many states. Only after 221 BCE, then the China become one country, the Qin dynasty, then Han dynasty. So before that time, including today, when we talk about China, we talk about the geographic area. There's no central government. There's many, many states. And I will show here is the picture. Roughly, nobody knows how many states during this period of time. And some people said 200. Some people said more than 200. For sure, it's over 100. So you will see all different color is different state. That's called spring and autumn, okay? But in the warring state, that's today we are talking about, the number of states significantly reduced to single digit. So that's the map. So you can imagine during this period of time, they must have something happen, a lot of annexation, war, okay, during this period of time. And then the number of states start to reduce. And you will see a few significant states. On this yellow, from this big area here called Chu, okay, that's in the southern state, and usually being considered as a foreign country during that time because they have the different culture. And somebody familiar with Taoism usually is close to on the south part. On this part, on your left-hand side, the west, the state called Qin. That would be very important for next week, next section when we talk about legalism, because this state practice legalism and eventually combine or conquer every single state and unite China as one state. So that would be the next section, just keep in mind. Today, we talk about Confucianism, but it's different kind of Confucianism. His name is Xunzi, and he is in this area, okay, the orange area, Qi, okay. So during that time, this state is the most powerful, most rich state. So the state is able to have take care of a lot of scholars. So Xunzi is one of the great scholars, okay, during this period of time. So today we are going to study his philosophy. So I will skip this one, and then that's the timeline I usually put in. And then if you are here for most of the time, you will know we probably cover all the philosophy. Okay, from the beginning, Lao Tzu, that's about 570 BCE. Okay, 道德经, Confucianists, Analects, Mozi. Okay, that's all in the ancient time. Then Mencius, okay, 惠施, okay, and 庄子, 公孙龙, okay, that's all school of name. And today we deal with Xunzi, okay, and it's about 300 to 235 BCE. And the next time we deal with Han Feizi, who is the legalism. So we will complete the ancient philosophy before the unification of China. Okay, all 6 major schools. Okay, so today we will focus on this one. The reason I share this screen is I think it's important. If you look at the timeline from 570 to about 400 BCE, okay, this philosophy, Lao Tzu and Confucius and Moism, how do they philosophize? Okay, they usually doing teaching. Okay, so you will see they just spell out. Okay, this is what you should do. This one will be similar to in Greek, like pre-Socratic philosophy, like Heraclitus, Anaxagoras. Okay, Parmenides. Okay, so all this kind of philosophy, they just tell you the truth, what to do. And the second period from Mencius, okay, and School of Names and Xunzi and Gongsun, they like to debate. So they start to have a dialogue. Okay, so their philosophy is during the conversation, debate. So almost the same time in Greek, you will see is like Plato's dialogue. And today we are entered to the new area because during this time, you will see, if you remember the map, the number of states start to reduce and people start to realize sooner or later, probably one nation or 2 nations will dominate the entire world or entire China. So during this time, people start to write an essay. Okay, so today you will see Xunzi and the next time Han Feizi. Their way of philosophizing is not kind of pure teaching, also not a dialogue. So basics or debating. Of course, they debate, but they put in writing. And their writing is very like modern day essay. They have the opening, they have the example, they have the argument, they criticize their competitors, and then draw the conclusion. Okay, so like modern day essays. Okay, so I will show a few writing so you can see. And compared to what happened in Greek is Aristotle's, right? Aristotle writes Organa, Nicomachean Ethic, okay, poetry, okay, and all kind of essay or writing. So that's the development during this period of time. So again, just a review for the six schools I mentioned many times. And if you have some basic idea about Chinese philosophy, you will know usually we have 6 schools. We talk about Ru, which is Confucianism. We talk about legalism. We talk about Taoism, Moism, School of Names, Yin Yang School. And Yin Yang School we introduced last time. And School of Name, we also talk about this, Moism, Taoism, legalism, Confucianism. And most of people know Confucianism is the most dominant philosophy in not only China, the entire East Asia. So of course, we talk about Confucius. And one important person is Mencius. We mentioned about 2 months ago. And today we mentioned another person, Xunzi. And what's the relationship between Mencius and Xunzi? Mencius is older. When Mencius died, Xunzi is about 11 years old. So in this case, Mencius doesn't know Xunzi, so he never criticized Xunzi. But Xunzi has read Mencius a lot. So Xunzi has a strong criticize on Mencius. So that's what you will see today. So basically, that's the overall and the background for today. Okay, so before I move to our main subject, okay, please put this one in the background. And if you have a question, please raise your hand if you have a question or you have something to comment before we go to Xunzi as a philosopher. Okay. Question or comment or before I move on for the next part, or I will say the major part of today's subject. Let me check. Is anybody here? Okay, so seems like everybody fine with this one. So right now, today I put in the 7 short section talk about Xunzi. Okay, because there's a lot to talk about. Of course, I will talk about Xunzi. Okay, the person and the book. The way I put it, okay, in ancient Chinese, when you call person 子 means master, and the book he wrote also called 子. So 荀子 means his last name is Xun and Mr. or Master Xun, and the book called Xunzi. So to make it clear, usually I will separate 2 words means a person. If I combine 2 words together, that means the book. Okay. So, and then I will go to his philosophy, basically talk about heaven and the people, then talk about human nature, talk about moral theory, ritual and the music, and the number 6 important thing is the rectification of names, which is the key political argument for Confucianism. And then we will see how Xunzi argue against other philosophers and in different schools, also in his own school. So Xunzi, he was born from 298 to 238 BCE. And then if you read the book, you will see Xunzi spelled in this way, and just keep it in your mind, and then that both correct and means the same person. Okay. So Ginny, can you read this paragraph for me?
Xunzi's importance in the development of Confucian philosophy rests on the historical influence of his major work, known today as the Xunzi. I have a thunderstorm going on here. Is that interrupting the way it sounds?
No, pretty good. Go ahead.
Okay. This book comprises 32 chapters or essays and is regarded as being in large part from his own hand, uncorrupted by later emendations or forgeries.
Stop. Okay. So this one is important. Xunzi have 32 chapters or essays. Okay. And most of the time people question about the authorship. But in general, Xunzi, this book, most scholars agree it's on his own head, because I think, okay, because I read the essay because it's consistent, and then that's the reason. Okay, I will show the 32. Go ahead, Ginny.
This book comprises 32 chapters or essays.
Oh, sorry, I repeat this one.
Yeah, you did. And then Xunzi essays are a milestone in the development of Chinese philosophy.
Yeah, that's what I meant, right? Because it start to write essay, and then next time when we talk about Han Feizi, that's also important, because Han Feizi also write 55 chapters about his essays. Go ahead, Ginny. Thank you.
Xunzi indeed was an authoritarian who formed a logical link between Confucianism and the totalitarian legalists. It is no accident that among his students were 2 of the most famous legalists, the theoretician Han Feizi and the statesman Li Si. I'm not pronouncing those 2.
Yeah, that's correct. Li Si, yeah.
Li Si.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Ginny. Okay, so he kind of stay between. Okay, I copy this one from Wikipedia, so we can put a question on that. Is this statement correct or not? I think you can make your own judgment after today's section and the next times when we talk about legalism. Basics, most of people, okay, because it's from Wikipedia, most people believe he is stand between Confucianism and legalism. Okay, and then so after next section, we study legalism. We will have a better understanding about what's his position. And today we just focus on Xunzi's philosophy. And then next time we will talk about Han Feizi And another person is Li Si. Li Si is a statement. So usually we don't consider him as a philosophy. So we don't read his philosophy, but he helped the state of Qin to conquer all the state and unify the entire China. So in this page, I put the page number, okay, page 143. If you read the PDF version, the English version, okay, that's page 143. And I copy from some key point from Feng Youlan's writing. And then usually if Feng Youlan's writing, I put in the blue text, so you will know. Okay, that's I copy from Feng Youlan, and you can find it from the book. Jenny, can you please read this one for me?
Among the literati, Xunzi thought is the antithesis of that Mencius. Some people say that Mencius represents the left wing of the school, while Xunzi represents its right wing. This saying, while suggestive, is too much of a simplified generalization. Mencius was left in that he emphasized individual freedom, but he was right in that he valued supermoral values and therefore was nearer to religion. Xunzi was right in that he emphasized social control, but left in that he expounded naturalism and therefore was in direct opposition to any religious ideas. Xunzi, realistic wing, chapter 13, Mencius, idealistic wing, chapter 7. Interesting.
Thank you, Jenny. So here is Feng Youlan's position, and we will see whether or not we agree on this position or not. So there's many comment about Xunzi, and usually compare with Mencius. A lot of people will say, okay, Xunzi is pessimistic. Mencius is optimistic, because Mencius talk about human nature is good, and Xunzi talk about human nature is bad. So one look at the positive side, one look at the negative side. According to Feng Youlan, Mencius is idealistic, and Xunzi is realistic, because he's talking about social control, talking about education, okay, social norm, and the Mencius talking about human nature and how to develop to a good person. So it's idealistic. Some people talk about Xunzi is right wing, and the Mencius is left wing. Okay, so that's the difficult way to argue, because Xunzi focus more on the individual study, and the Mencius talking about more social coherence, something like this. And another way to compare with Mencius and Xunzi is, some people will say, okay, Mencius is just like Rousseau, and Xunzi is like Thomas Hobbes. Okay, because Mencius talk about human nature is good, so the state of nature is in the happy situation, and Xunzi is just like Thomas Hobbes. Okay, the state of nature is in the terrible situation, because people compete to each other, and they have a lot of war. So there's many ways to compare Xunzi and Mencius, and we always put them together. And then today we are going to see whether or not this argument is correct or not. I personally see they all correct in some way, and please don't see this one as a way to understand, but that's the way to help you get into the philosophy of Xunzi. That's my suggestion about reading. So here, I just want to show you the 32 books, okay, of Xunzi. And if you go to see text, you will see the 32 texts. But unfortunately, there's no public English translation for the, just 1 minute, for Xunzi's 32 chapter. Okay, so so I just have to do a lot of work by myself. And I think I highlighted some of them. And for example, on the evilness of human nature, this one is a famous arguing about human nature is bad. correct names, or you want to call it the rectification of names, that's followed by Confucius political philosophy. Number one, exaltation of learning. I think this one is the most important Xunzi's philosophy. It's a fundamental. Okay, so but Feng Youlan's writing on this chapter, he didn't include any single line from this chapter. So I will include this one to show to read the first paragraph of the first chapter. And I think from this, you will understand much better about Xunzi's philosophy. And another one, so-called Against the 12 Masters or Against the 12 Philosophies. This one also not included in Feng Youlan's writing, but I will include it at the last because I see his argument against other philosophy is very interesting, and you can see how he want to show his position. Okay, so let's read the very first paragraph of first chapter from this one. So I really need Ginny, please, now if you can read.
The exhortation of learning. I once spent the whole day pondering, but it wasn't as good as a moment's worth of learning. I once stood on my toes to look far away, but it wasn't as good as the broad view from a high place. If you climb to a high place and wave, you have not lengthened your arms, but you can be seen from farther away. If you shout from upwind, you have not made your voice stronger, but you can be heard clearly. One who makes use of a chariot and horses has not thereby improved his feet, but he can now go thousands of miles. One who makes use of a boat and oars has not thereby become a strong swimmer, but he can now cross rivers and streams. Xunzi is not different from others by birth. Rather, he is good at making use of things.
Thank you, Ginny. Okay, I think this paragraph is very good, and the basics make it very clear on how Xunzi start his philosophy. Because a few key points. First, he is a Confucianism. Okay, a Confucianist, right? Because if you read Confucius' Analect, we all know Confucius talk about Ren, which is benevolence, okay, many times. But one important thing Confucius keep talking about is so-called Chinese called 好学, okay, eager to learn. Learning is Confucius keep teaching. So this one, the very first paragraph of first chapter, Xunzi is talking about learning and why you need to learn, right? So he give you a reason to learn. Basically, we will call him instrumentalist, right? The learning is just like you have the tool, right? You use vehicle so you can go further, right? You not because you become a good runner. You use boat so you can cross the river, not because you become a good swimmer, because you use the tool. So find the tool and use it. They will improve you, just like to improve your morality, improve this society. You need to learn. That's the tool. So instead of looking for the heaven, looking for the ancient, or looking for the government, Xunzi try to turn to yourself, your individual. Doesn't matter the society going, doesn't matter what's the fate you have. One thing you can do is learning. And then he focused on human effort. So in this point, I really appreciate Xunzi's moral teaching in this one, very practical. And then, so I think this paragraph is very important. And from this point, we will understand Xunzi's entire philosophy much better. So here I end of the first part of Xunzi's the person and his philosophy. So I will see if anyone have a question or comment.
I found it really interesting that 15 lines of English, you turned it into 3 lines of Chinese.
Yeah, because it's right in the ancient Chinese and
Oh,
the
ancient Chinese.
in the
Yeah.
ancient Chinese is more condensed. If you write to the modern, that could be the same length. Yeah. Thank you to point out. Any comment, question? So everything fine? Okay.
I actually do have a question.
Please.
Yes, so
Yeah.
so I have a question about what you just read. You said that there is nowhere that we can find the English version of excuse my, I'm not probably pronouncing his name properly. Xunzi.
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 Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Okay. Let's put this right.
how can
Public domain.
Okay. A public domain. I can
Yeah.
find this
Yeah.
version.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the link that's also in the Meetup app.
No, I didn't put the public domain for the translation.
Oh,
There's no public domain. What I'm saying is there's no public domain English translation, but they do have in the Amazon you can buy the English translation.
the book, the
The
Xunzi
book,
book.
yeah, they have the book, you can buy it. But unlike Dao De Jing or Mencius or Confucius Analect, you can find in the cited, which is a public domain. You can read it. You know.
Okay, thank you so much.
You are welcome. Okay. So let me move on the second part about the heaven. Okay, so heaven and the people. So we will talk about the position of man that's important for Xunzi's philosophy. Ginny, can you read for me?
Xunzi is best known because of his theory that human nature is originally evil. This is directly opposed to that of Mencius, according to which human nature is originally good. Superficially, it may seem that Xunzi had a very low opinion of man, yet the truth is quite the contrary. Xunzi's philosophy may be called a philosophy of culture. His general thesis is that everything that is good and valuable is the product of human effort. Value comes from culture, and culture is the achievement of man. It is in this that man has the same importance in the universe as heaven and earth.
Thank you, Ginny. Okay, so
I
here,
like that. Yeah.
so here is you will start to see the different focus on Xunzi and other Confucianism. Okay, so the last line, the man has the same importance of the universe as heaven and the earth. We all know through the tradition, probably the entire East Asia, right? People talking about the entire universe is kind of organic. So they have the heaven, they have the earth, they have the man. Man is in between, right? So people talk about the heaven and the man interaction. That's later in the Han Dynasty, about 200-300 years later. And the Confucius also talking about knowing the maintain of heaven. Xunzi is different. He is talking about human. The human is the center of the earth. We will see later more time. So he focused on the human effort. So everything good and the value is from the human effort. And then in general, I think most of people, when he talk about the human nature is good or bad. So here, I just give you a quick review on Confucius' teaching. So if you see the presentation with the blue background, that means is non-Xunzi's philosophy. So this one I copy from Confucius Analects. This one is a famous chapter, book 2, chapter 4. Here is Confucius talking about his lifetime from he is 15, 30, 40, 50 to 60, 70. I'm not going to read all of this one, but important thing is Confucius talk about at 50, right? I know the maintain of heaven. So to Confucius, that's important. And that's kind of landmark achievement when he get old enough. During that time, 50 considered as old. So he he know the mandate of heaven. Okay. Another quote is from Mencius, book 7. Okay, Mencius have 7 books, the last 7. He talked about the development of one's mind to the utmost. One knows one's nature. And by knowing one's nature, one knows the heaven. To preserve one's mind, to nourish one's nature, this is the way to serve heaven. So you are not only need to, Confucius want to know the heaven. Mencius even more developed, more further developed. He's talking about the mind, the nature, and the heaven. So you have to preserve your mind. Remember, Mencius think about nature is good, right? Human nature, your mind is good. Preserve the goodness and nurture your human nature. We talk about one's nature, the human nature, and then you can serve the heaven. So that's Mencius' idea. So you will see how important of heaven in this one. And that's why in last time when I talked about yin-yang school, it's a different school from Confucianism, but later development, yin-yang school, talking about heaven, universe, become important part of Confucianism. But Xunzi, if you see here, you will see Xunzi is going to reject this idea of heaven. He didn't say there's no heaven, ignore the heaven, no. But he just said, okay, focus on your work, human effort, not to know the heaven. So we have 2 hands up, then I will stop for short. Okay, and this one, Emma and Mark. Emma, please.
Thank you. So for modern China, is communism, is that a Confucius philosophy, or how does communism like overlap with Confucianism?
Okay, so I'm not going to answer this question, okay, because this one, not because it's too political, because there's no answer, okay. Communists, we should ask about Karl Marx, and then does it still have the root of Confucianism? The answer is yes. And what kind of Confucianism? It's hard to answer. If we have time to the end, if we have time, we can have a further discuss on that. Thank you, Emma. Mark, please.
Yeah, I can make a general comment on that, or I could wait until the end. I have a different comment as well.
Yeah, let's wait for the last, for this kind of question. I try not to interrupt. Yeah,
sure.
So let's focus on understanding.
So I have a different comment though, Jason, I want to make.
Okay, please.
So about mankind or man. So because I think there's some new people here, and Jason, please correct me if I say anything wrong. So in the European philosophical tradition, we have these highly genderized languages. So the word man is often used to stand in for humanity, but of course it also references a specific gender, and that's a kind of a result of a male supremacist culture. China's a little different, especially in ancient Chinese. The language is not genderized the way English is. So in a certain way, if you translate these concepts about humanity into man, it takes a certain male supremacist connotation in English that it doesn't have in the original Chinese. But the contradictory aspect is China traditionally is very male supremacist in a lot of ways. Like when the Europeans started colonizing China in the 1900s, the status of women in Europe was higher than in China. So there is that kind of patriarchal attitude in China traditionally, but it's not manifest in the language the way you would think if you translate it into English using the traditional term for humanity, mankind, that's used, or man, that's used in a lot of English philosophical discourse. Jason, please correct me if I got in.
I think you are correct. You are correct. Yeah, you are correct. There's nothing wrong on this, and that's important. When we read, for example, this one, when we talk about heaven, earth, and the man, right? Don't read as a male person, okay? But it's general talk about person. But again, if you read all the Western philosophy, they will say man is political animal, okay? You use man, okay? So all men are created equal. Now use men, but it should means people. So I try my best. Okay, but anyway, Chinese word is this word, 人. Okay, and it used for male, female, boy, girl, old man, young man. That's the general words. Okay, so let's let's go for the chapter 17. Okay, which is the discourse on heaven. Okay, that's also very important argument. Ginny, you have time to read?
Yep.
Okay,
One more.
please.
Okay. The arrayed stars follow each other.
No, can you start from here? Heaven has...
Oh, yeah. Heaven has its seasons. Earth has its resources. Man has his culture. This is what is meant when it is said that man is able to form a trinity with heaven and earth.
Okay, so here you talk about heaven, earth, and human. They all have their own distinct job, right? Heaven controlled by season, basically talk about time. Earth is all the resources coming from. And the man has culture. Okay, that's Feng Youlan's translation, culture. But Chinese called 智. Okay, and if I translate, I might translate as man has his governance. Okay, so that means he manage, he control everything, he take care of everything. So he said that means man is able to form trinity, 能参. Okay, so that means man use heaven's seasoning, the resources from the earth, man govern everything. That's Xunzi's argument. And the following will be more important. Ginny, please read for me.
The arrayed stars follow each other in their revolutions. The sun and the moon take turns shining. The 4 seasons proceed in succession. Yin and yang undergo their great transformations, and winds and rain are broadly bestowed. Their harmony keeps all things alive. Their nurturing helps all things to thrive. What is such that one does not see its workings, but sees only its accomplishments? This is called spirit-like power. Interesting.
Yeah, so basically he's talking about the in the nature you see the nature's accomplishment, but you don't see how the heaven work, right? You see the raining, but you don't see how it's raining. So he called this one 神, which is spiritual. You only see the accomplishment, but you don't see the spiritual, okay, the how they reach this point. Then he's going to draw the conclusion here. Ginny, please.
What is such that one does not see its workings, but sees only its accomplishments? This is called spirit-like power. What is such that everyone knows how it comes about, but no one understands in its no one understands it in its formless state? This is called the accomplishment of heaven. Only the sage does not seek to understand heaven.
Okay, so thank you, Ginny. So here you will see.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the last. Only the sage does not seek to understand heaven. I don't
Okay,
understand
so
that.
we should translate as take out the only. Okay. Okay. The sage does not seek to understand heaven. I think I translate directly from the Chinese word. That's why it sounds a little bit odd. Okay. Here he's talking about most of the people, okay, try to understand heaven. But in my point of view, Xunzi's point of view, the sage, okay, the great people don't try to understand heaven. Ginny, am I making it clear?
Is that because the sage because sage already understand heaven? Is that why he doesn't try to seek to understand? Is that
because there's no reason to understand? Because we only see the result. but we don't know how does it come. And then during that time, there's no technology, no science, and then people start to do mystical reason on that. Yin and yang, 5 elements, book of change, all this kind of thing. He said, why we care about this, right? So only the sage, okay, that means only the good people, only the smart people will avoid study the heaven. They just do my work and ignore the heaven. I think that's the way to. So Ginny, does that make sense? Still not. Okay, that's fine. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Sometimes I read the Chinese, I write in English, I will assume, okay, that's clear. But it's great to let me know it's not clear. We'll see Mark. Mark may have a better way to explain.
Okay.
Mark.
Yeah, I have some insight on that. So earlier, Feng Yolong talked about categorizing Mengzi and Xunzi as left and right, and then vice versa. And which I thought was really clever and profound the way he did that. So I think what this is here could be kind of viewed as a polemic against what is kind of derisively called superstition in English, or more respectfully, religion. Those aren't exactly the same thing, but they're kind of related. This is a more kind of like practical, kind of hard-headed idea, or Xunzi is. So he's kind of like saying, you know, don't spend your time like burning turtle shells or throwing stones or whatever to figure out what's going to happen in the future, because you can't understand that. That's all beyond our capability. So just focus on what you can understand. So in a way, it could be seen as kind of an ancient version of a scientific or a materialist kind of outlook. That's the way I interpret it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. Okay, so I think I need to work on this English word on this one, because this kind of grammar is happen very often in all ancient Chinese text. Only sage, okay, knowing something, only sage. That means that's the role model. They will do that. And the genie is a quite good question, because he already understands the heaven. No, he doesn't care. He doesn't want to understand the heaven because it's not important. In another way, don't study book of changes. Don't study yin and yang. Okay, just do your work. That's more important. I think that would be an easy way to explain. But I think that this paragraph is important, Ginny, if you can read this one.
Okay.
I think that this one will make it very, and I really, this one is not, I think it's partially included in Feng Youlan's writing, but I really like this paragraph because this one is kind of his renunciation to the heaven. Let's put it this way. Okay, go
Excuse
ahead.
me, is it okay if I ask a question before you go to the next one?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
About what you just said. So what Mark just explains about how certain back then, like I guess worrying about superstition, since this guy is more practical, I
Yes.
wanted to know, like, did this specific Chinese philosopher, did they also get some of their ancient philosophies from like the ancient Hermetic or the Kemetic texts from ancient Egypt? Because the ancient Egyptians said something similar to that, where they would say that this was the time where philosophy was rising in Europe at the time during the Great Enlightenment period. And the Egyptians would say, oh, you know, the Europeans, they're interesting. They come with these philosophies, asking these questions that it makes no sense, right? Like trying to question God or trying to question where we come from, but they're saying there's no point. We need to just focus on what we do have here on the physical world. So is that similar to what the Egyptians were saying?
That's put this way. Yeah.
Okay.
First, there's no connection to Egyptian, at least what I know. And the second, and during this period of time, not only Egypt, right? Greek, all the place, India, they all have the kind of mystical thinking. So this kind of thinking is very common around the world. And the reason I appreciate Xunzi a lot, he probably one of the few people don't care about the mystical thing. Okay. He said, we do our things. Okay. So I think that's his, you will say controversial during that time. Okay. But I will say that's his
May I just also add a little comment, Jason?
Yeah.
I go to a lot of philosophy meetings on a continuing basis, and I find my little observation that I've made is that it's very interesting that throughout the world, they didn't have buses or airplanes to travel and be influenced by each other. And yet it seemed as though China, Egypt, Greece, they were developing the consciousness and thinking very similar development about the same time. 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, or whatever, as opposed to 10,000, 20,000 years ago. All of a sudden, within last 2,000 or 3,000 years, people are thinking and questioning. It's just very similar concepts. It's so interesting, I find. That's my little observation I've made.
Thank you, Ginny. Mark, please.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to comment on what the last two speakers said. Yeah, as far as we know, there's no at this point. This is too early for contact from outside of China or significant influence outside of China. But does seem to be a parallel development all over the ancient world, where initially religion arises with civilization out of animism, and then kind of as a reaction to religion, philosophy arises. And I don't know much about ancient Egyptian philosophy. I've read the instructions of Ptahhotep, but that's really all I know. But definitely in Greece, India, and China, you have philosophy kind of. In China, it's a little different. It's not quite as oppositional, but it arises after religion and kind of is a kind of an alternative to religion. And then later in India and in Europe, philosophy and religion kind of re-merge together. And that happens a little bit in China too, especially with Taoism. But initially in these ancient times, they're very distinct and separate. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Okay, so here I like to focus one thing. See, if this page, if you remind everyone on this page is from Confucius Analect, 200 years before Xunzi, and the Xunzi must read this one. At 50, I know the mandate of heaven. Mencius, who is, let's say, 70 years older than Xunzi, he talked about that's the way to serve heaven. And the Xunzi will just say opposite, right? The sage not seek to understand heaven. No, in another way, no need to understand heaven. Okay, so just totally opposite. So I will appreciate Ginny, if you read this page and the next page.
Okay, yeah, this is the last. This is the last one I'll be reading.
Yeah, that's okay. You can go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Discourse on heaven. One performs the rain sacrifice and it rains. Why? I say, there is no special reason. It is the same as when one does not perform the rain sacrifice and it rains anyway. When the sun and moon suffer eclipse, one tries to save them. When heaven sends drought, one performs the rain sacrifice. One performs divination, Bu and Shi, and then decides on important affairs. This is not for the sake of getting what one seeks, but rather to give things proper form, to gloss over the matter decorum. Thus, Xunzi, prince gentleman, looks upon this as proper form, gloss over decorum. But the common people look upon it as supernature. He who looks upon it as proper form is good. He who looks upon it as supernature is ill.
Okay, and then last part, Ginny, please.
To exalt heaven and long for it, why not nourish things and oversee them? To obey heaven and praise it, why not adopt oneself to the... I'm sorry, my computer is acting silly. Hold on. To obey heaven and praise it, why not adopt oneself to the environment and use it? To hope for proper time and wait, why not seize opportunity and act? To rely on things and increase them, why not develop their powers and transform them? To think of things and compare them, why not look after things and keep them? to wish that things may come to pass, why not take what one has and bring them to pass? Therefore, if a person neglects what men can do and seeks for what heaven does, he fails to understand the nature of things.
Thank you very much, Ginny.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Jason. I enjoyed it.
Thank
See you
you
next
for
time.
your beautiful reading. And then if you understand, that means I do a good job. If you don't understand, that means I have some problem, like you bring up. So thank you very much. And
Oh, thank you, Jason. All right,
I
bye-bye.
would like to have you. Okay. So again, I think that this paragraph is also very important. I think the message is very clear, right? So he talked about 不 and 是. Last time we talked about in the Yin Yang school, right? Last time we talked about in the Yin Yang school, Book of Changes. He all talk about this. He said, why are you doing this, right? You worship and it's rain, just like if you don't worship, it still rain, okay? And then he also talking about, doesn't matter, you are sage king or you are tyrant. The heaven also act in the way it is. It's nothing going to change. So there's no such thing of human nature, heaven-human interaction, right? So I think that this page is also important. He tell you, right? You obey the heaven and the praises. Why not just adapt oneself to the environment and use it, right? To hope for proper time and wait. Why not just seize opportunity and act? Just do your work. And here, I'd highlight here is neglect what man can do and seek what heaven does. He failed. Okay, so I think that's a very important message for Xunzi. So here bring to the comparison between Confucius and the Mencius and the Xunzi here. So I put the red as Mencius argument and the purple as Confucius argument and the pink as Xunzi's argument. So back to the Confucius, original Confucius philosophy. Confucius philosophy, Confucius, the person, okay, his philosophy has three parts: political philosophy, moral theory, and the philosophy of life. And the philosophy of life basics is talking about knowing the mandate of heaven. And the Mencius continue on this part, not only knowing the mandate of heaven, he bring this one, he so-called all-inspiring qi. Okay, today most of people heard the thing called qi. Mencius use this qi as a personal cultivation. So it bring from person, a personal qi, and bring up to the heaven and the earth. That's the Mencius idea. So in Xunzi's argument, he totally rejects this part of philosophy. He just tell people, tell everyone. He doesn't say there's no heaven, you just, there's no God, not this kind of thing. He just say the heaven and the earth, they do their own thing. And then what we need to do, we do our own thing. You don't need to understand the heaven. You don't need to worship. You don't need to listen to the heaven. You just have to do your work. Take advantage of what heaven gives you. I think that's his philosophy on the first part. And I think that's the very important part about heaven and the people. So that's the third part I have finished. And then question and the comment about this part. The next one, I will move to another most famous argument about human nature. No? Okay. Number 3, human nature. So here I put a blue background. So that's Mencius argument. Okay. So Mencius said, okay, the Tao of Yao and the Sun, okay, in the ancient time, during that time, they always, doesn't matter which school you are, they always bring the ancient sage, and the Yao and the Sun are the most famous. Okay, so was simply that of xiao. Okay, xiao means filial piety, and ti means fraternal duty. That means your good relationship, serve your parent, serve your brother. Okay, well, so he said everybody can be the sage. That's Mencius said. Okay, and as long as you wear the clothes of Yao, the sage Yao, repeat the words of the ancient sage, right, and do the action of the ancient sage, you will become the Yao. And if you, okay, so I don't have to read the second part. Basically, he's talking about everyone can be like a sage king. You just speak the word the sage kings speak. You just wear the clothes he wear. You just behave the way he behave. You are like the sage king. So give everyone a good way to, a hope to become a sage king. Then, most important, Mencius argue about the human nature. Why he want to talk about everyone can be the sage king? Because we have the same kind of human nature. Doesn't matter you have the same kind of human nature like a sage king. So here he said, so he talking about here is Mencius, not Xunzi. Don't get confused. Water indeed will flow indifferent to east and west. But okay, so put it this way. Start from here. The tendency of man's nature to good is like the tendency of water to flow downward. There are none but have this tendency to good, just as water flow downward. So Mencius is talking about human nature is good, just like water flowing downward. Now, by striking water and causing it to dip up, you may make it go over your forehead, and or by damming and leading it, you may force it up here. But are such movements according to nature of water? The answer is no, right? It is the force applied which causes them. When men are made to do what is not good, their nature is deal with this way. So this Mencius argument is human nature is good, just like water flowing down. And then, well, I think Mencius is not done, right? He always know how does the bad people happen in this world. He said, just like water, right? You can have the water go up, right? You can, in the dam, you can pent up water. Why water can go up? Because outside force. So his argument, Mencius' argument, is human nature is naturally good. But when you see the bad people, because the outside force make people bad. That's his argument. And then further, he developed, Mencius developed, since human nature is good, and we shall avoid the outside force, and we will naturally develop. So he further developed of human nature has 4 beginnings, 4 seeds of 4 limbs, right? We talked about this a few, probably 2 months ago. 4 seeds, right? Ren, okay, righteousness, right, riches, wisdom. That's the human nature. And then we should develop this. That's Mencius' argument. So that's based on human nature is good. So let's look at how Xunzi argued about human nature. So chapter 23, right, on the evilness of human nature. Okay, so on the opening, and then again, I would like Xunzi's philosophy because he's very straightforward, makes things very clear, right? At the opening, first sentence, Xunzi said, the nature of man is evil. His goodness is acquired training. Okay, so acquired training is Feng Youlan's translation. The Chinese word is wei. This word means fake. Okay. In today's, these words have the negative meaning, but we can take a more neutral meaning, which means human effort. So the translation is Xunzi's opening statement is the nature of human is evil, but he knows there's a lot of good people, right? The good people is fake it, okay? Or you put it this way, that's the effort. So human effort will make it human good, okay? So here, his argument is similar to Mencius. Every man in the street can become Yu, that's another sage kid, okay? Just like Mencius said, everybody can become a sage kid, okay? Every man on the street has the capacity of knowing human hardness, the 人, okay, 义, okay, obedience to law and uprightness. So, and the means to carry out this principle. Thus, it is evident that he can become Yu, the sage kid. So here, instead of saying human nature is originally good, right, like Mencius, Xunzi is talking about human nature is originally intelligent. Okay, so you can see he is not that negative. Instead of saying human nature is originally good, Xunzi is talking about human nature is originally intelligent. So this intelligence will plus your effort will make you a good person, and everyone follow this route can become like a sage king. I think that's the difference between Mencius and Xunzi. And you may see it in a way they are similar. They are very positive view for the human, but their original assumption is different. So here, Xunzi is argued directly against Mencius' argument, right? That's in his writing. Continue, he said, Mencius said people nature is good. I said, there is not so. Okay, he argued against, he rejected Mencius' argument. In every case, both in ancient time and in the present, what everyone call good is being correct, ordered, peaceful, and control. Okay, so here he is talking about Mencius say human nature is good. Then his question is, what do you mean good, right? Good usually means correct, means ordered, means peaceful, means control. What they call bad is being deviant, dangerous, unruly, chaotic, right? This is the division between good and the bad. So instead of arguing good and the bad, he's arguing the division between good and the bad, right? Now, does he, Mencius, really think people nature is originally good, ordered, peaceful, and controlled? Then what use will there be sage kid? So here, Xunzi's argument is two things. One is when you talk about good, you are not clear what do you mean good, right? But actually, when we say good, we usually means is correct, order, peaceful, control. All this one actually is social norm. It's not nature. It's a division of good and the bad. And in his point of view, it's no reason to talk about human nature is good, because in this case, why you need to learn, why you need to study. I think that's his argument against Mencius. And then I will put all this one together again. So Xunzi already reject Mencius and Confucius' argument about heaven. And then on the moral theory, okay, Confucius talk about yi, talk about 人, okay, human-heartedness, talking about the devotion, reciprocity, talk about ritual, talk about filial piety, right? Mencius argue human nature is good, okay, but he reject this one. He said human nature is bad, okay. But the next question would be, since Xunzi argue human nature is bad, okay, but human nature is intelligent, how is he going to deal with all the moral teaching? So the important is he will focus on rituals. And that will be the next subject we are going to talk about. But here is more on his theory about the human nature, which is totally different, or we will say direct opposite to what Mencius is talking about. So I'll stop here and for 1 or 2 minutes, if you have a question, comment, before I move on. For the next subject is about the Xunzi's moral theory. Emma, please.
So if he thinks that human nature is good, what does he mean by good? Is he talking about individual human nature?
Yes.
Because with the other person, good is social, and so it's something more about society. It doesn't rely so much on the individual, it's on an ordered society. So for the individual to be good, what is good?
I think you make a very good point, right? So Mencius talk about individually good, right? And the Xunzi talking about correct, order, peaceful, control is a social situation, not individual. So I think you are right, okay? He is talking about social, okay? Because in another way, if you are yourself, okay, in the island, like a Caruso, right? There's nothing good or bad because there's no social. The good, so-called good or bad, only makes sense when you live in a human society. And that's exactly bring to the next subject we are going to talk about, the moral theory. Why, I think you want to talk about why do we act morally? Or why do we need morality? Okay, that's Xunzi want to answer the question, right? Since his idea is about we live in this society, we need to be correct, ordered, peaceful, and controlled. Otherwise, we cannot survive in this society. So here we will move to the next subject, talking about the moral theory. Okay, that's here is how he argued about morality. So people desire and hate the same thing. Their desire are many, but things are few. Okay, if you have read Thomas Hobbes, right, that's very similar to Thomas Hobbes, right? In the original, there's one apple tree, there's 10 people, and everybody wanted the apple, and then people fighting for that, right? And since they are few, they will inevitably strive. Therefore, a single individual needs the support of the accomplishment of hundreds of men. Yet an able man cannot be skillful in more than one line, and one man cannot hold two offices simultaneously. If people all live alone and do not serve one another, there will be poverty. So people live together, right? For two reasons. Well, first reason, we need to live together because I cannot farm and then making clothes. Okay, so you need to live together with other people. So I grow food and other people make clothes. So I have a clothes to wear, and then the other person can have a food to eat. So we share the work. Okay, that's what we do together. But the resources are few. People are compete for the same thing. So we need, okay, something to make sure everything is in order. I think that's his argument. We may not see this one is very special argument, but if you look at during that period of time, remember that's the time around 2,300 years ago. And this kind of argument, we will say very advanced, right? So that's a Feng Youlan's comment on page 147. And Feng Youlan said, people must live together. And in order to do so without contention, a limit must be imposed on everyone in the satisfaction of his desire. Xunzi's argument to explain the origin of moral is quite utilitarianistic and resemble that of Mozi. If you remember Mozi, okay, Mozi also talking about this kind of social norm. Okay, so their argument is utilitarianistic. Okay, unlike Mencius or Confucius argument is on the moral base. Okay, on the human nature base, according to Mencius, or according to Confucius, is an ancient sage teaching about this. So, and continue on this one, chapter 5. Okay, Xunzi talking about this. This one, you will see his argument is a little bit similar to what Mencius argue, right? Man is not truly man in the fact that he is uniquely. He has 2 feet and no feather. If you're familiar with story of a featherless biped, so he's talking about man is not animal, but rather in the fact that he makes social distinction. Birds and beasts have feather and offspring, but not the affection between father and son. They are male and female, but do not have the proper separation between male and female. Hence, in the way, which means Dao, way of humanity, there must be distinction. No distinction are greater than those of society. No social distinction are greater than rituals. Okay, so from the utilitarianistic argument of origin of morality, Xunzi bring to how. Okay, so the how, the method of keep social order is rituals. That's the word I try to. Rituals is both religious reason, social norm, okay, social decorum, okay. So sometimes I translate as okay, that's a Chinese word. So I will use rituals throughout this presentation. So Feng Youlan on page 147, he wrote, okay, the social relation between father and the son, husband and the wife are products of culture and civilization. They are not gift of nature, but achievement of spirit. He talked about human spirit. Men shall have the social relation and the rituals, because it is this that distinguish him from birds and beasts. According to this line of argument, man must have morality, not because he cannot help it, but because he ought to have it. This line of argument is more akin to that of Mencius. So here you will see Xunzi's argument in one way about the morality. In one way, he is similar to Mozi, which is utilitarianistic. The other way, he also on the human side of argument, right? Because like Mencius, the reason we want to have moral is we are different than animal. So animal have a father and a son, husband and a wife, and we also have a father and son, we have family, and we also have the male and the female, but we are different than animal. That's Mencius' reason, and it's also Xunzi's reason. And then the solution will be different because Mencius and Xunzi have the fundamental different on that, because Mencius believe human nature is good, so you have to naturally grow your human nature. But Xunzi's argument is human nature is bad, so you need the social norm, which bring up to the important words, the ritual, to this one. So that become an important message for Xunzi. So I bring back to this chart in Confucius and compare Confucius, Mencius, and Xunzi. Okay, Xunzi already reject the mandate of heaven. Okay, so he didn't want to talk this one, and he reject Mencius talk about human nature is bad. So since human nature is bad, how to control the social society is rituals. So I put this text bigger is he is the same as rest of Confucianists, right? They talk about oldness, or you want to call righteousness, talk about ren, human-heartedness or benevolence. He talk about the devotion, reciprocity, and then xiao, filial piety. Everything is the same, but he focused this one, Richard, the objective way of behave, okay, is the most important for Xunzi. So that brings to Xunzi the central teaching about his philosophy, which is the Richard is the objective way of following social order. I think that's he want to talk about. So I will finish this part, and before I go more detail about Richard and the music. So I will stop here for question or comment. Any comment, question? No? Okay, let me move on. Okay. Number 5. The course on riches. Okay, so that's chapter 19 when Xunzi talk about this, right? So he want to give a reason, okay, of Richard. And Richard, the most important is talking about mourning, okay? So when do riches arise? He want to talk about why we need riches. The answer is man is born with desires. When these desires are not satisfied, he cannot remain without seeking their satisfaction. When this seeking for satisfaction without measure of limit, there can only be contention. When there is contention, there will be disorder. When there is disorder, everything will finish. Finish means in the disaster. Okay. The early king, which is sage king, okay, that's the good thing, hates disorder. And so they establish the ritual and yi to set an end of the confusion. Okay, because we need this one to deal with social order. That's the ritual. So here I copy a few lines from page 148, which is Feng Youlan's writing. And I think Feng Youlan summarized very well. So I copy this one. I will read this part. Okay. Most of the chapter of the Book of Rites, okay, or Book of Ritual were written by the follower of Xunzi. Okay. If you're familiar with Confucius education, okay, we will know like 4 books, right? Confucius Analects, Mencius, Great Learning, and the Doctrine of the Mean. Okay, that's the 4 books people need to read. And there's also have 5 classics. Okay, you also need to read as a Confucian scholar. One is the Book of Right Rituals, Book of Oath, Book of Change, Yi Jing, and Book of Document, Book of the Spring and the Autumn. That's the 5 classic. And the Book of Oath is one of the 5 classic. And then most scholars believe most part of this book is written by the follower, disciple of Xunzi. Okay, because Xunzi really make a lot of contribution about the rituals. Okay, even till today. So Feng Youlan continued. He said, if we were to act solely under the direction of our intellect, therefore we will need no mourning rites. Okay, so when we talk about ritual, the most important is the mourning. Okay, so we talk about ritual and the music together. Ritual here is deal with when your emotion, you are sad. Okay, how do you deal with this situation, right? But since our mind also has its emotion aspect, this causes us, when our loved one die, to hope that the dead may live again, and there may be a soul that will continue existing in the other world. When we thus give way to our fancy, we take superstition as truth and deny the judgment of intellect. So here, Xunzi is arguing, right? The reason we need ritual, because we are not only has our intellect, we also have emotion. So when the people die, usually means our parents die. Intelligently, we know they are gone forever, but emotionally, we want the people stay with us. So that's the situation we are dealing. And then for this reason, in a way, we fancy, okay, we take the superstition as truth, and we will deny the judgment of intelligence. Okay. So in determining our attitude toward the dead, we have to take both aspects into consideration, means intellect and emotion. As interpreted by Confucianism, the mourning and the sacrificial rites did precise this. So here, Xunzi gives the Confucianism a good theory about the ritual, how to mourning your parents. It, unlike most of the ancient time, they go totally religious, go to think about God, think about heaven, think about other world, right? Confucius, including Xunzi, is talking about we are going to consider both intellect and emotion side and put them together. And he called this one is ritual or rites. These rites were original not without superstition and mythology. With the interpretation of Confucianists, these aspects were purged. The religion element in them were transformed into poetry, and that were no longer religious, but simply poetic, right? So you will see, I really like this description because I always see the ancient China, the people dealing with death is in a way not religious, without believing the immortal soul, without thinking about the other world. And remember, during this time, there's no Buddhism thinking, but they are able to deal the death because they transform the religious element to poetic element. Religion and the poetry are both expression of the fancy of man. They both mingle imagination and the reality. The difference between them is that religion takes what itself say as true, while poetry takes what itself say as false. According to Confucianism, when we perform the mourning and the sacrificial rites, we are deceiving ourselves without being actually deceived. So in a way, according to Feng Youlan, the Xunzi give a very good foundation or theoretical foundation of Confucius ritual. This ritual deal with human intellect and emotion, take care of the reality and the fancy, and the ritual performance become not so religious, but more poetic. So that's the way to do it. And this one have two purposes. One is to take care, control, and properly express our emotion. In another way, also give us an education. So ritual has a religious aspect and also has educational purpose here. So that's how we deal with the sad situation. But how do we deal with happiness, right? That's about music. So here, okay, page 150, Feng Youlan write, thus music for Xunzi function as an instrument for moral education. This has been prevailing Confucius' view of music. So it's the same as what Confucius, ritual and moral. There's no difference between Confucius and Xunzi. Okay, but Xunzi gives a strong foundation and give the reason why we need to do proper rituals and perform music, right? Chapter 20, okay, Xunzi have a separate argument about music. He talk about man cannot be without joy, right? We deal with the mourning, the sad thing, the disaster. Then we should deal with joy. When there is joy, it must be physical embodiment. When this embodiment does not conform with right principle, there will be disorder. The early kings hate this disorder, and so they established music of Ya and the song. Okay, Ya and the song basically talk about book of oath to guide it. So here he talk about, forget about the sad thing, the mourning, we already done with that. And how about happiness? Happiness, sometimes you overjoy and you cause disorder. So in this way, we also need to have some control. In a way, you enjoy your happiness, share your happiness with others, but in a way also put on the limit. So the society will keep in order. So they cause this its music to be joyful and not degenerate, right? You should be joyful but not degenerate. Its beauty to be distinct but not limited. They cause it in the indirect and the direct appeal, and the complexity and the simplicity, frugality and the richness, its rest and the notes, and stir up the goodness in human mind and prevent evil feeling from gaining any foothold. This is the manner in which the early king established music. So that's the reason we need music to enjoy, to share with other people, but don't go over, okay, disorder. Why can Moses refuse it? So he's arguing against Moses. If you remember on the chapter 5 or something, Moses has an argument against music, okay, against because according to Moses, okay, Moism, music is wasting of money, waste a lot of money, and totally useless. And here, Xunzi is talking about music is for the moral education, and it's a proper way to express our joy. Okay, so that's his argument on the thing. And then I will pause for 1-2 minutes, okay, before I go to his another important argument about the rectification of names, okay, which is a key argument in Confucius philosophy. Emma, please.
So what do you think Xunzi would have thought of K-pop? No, I'm just joking.
I don't know.
Was Xunzi and Confucius, would you consider them to be atheists?
It's what?
Would you consider Xunzi and Confucius to be atheists?
Atheist?
Yeah.
Well, it's a big question, okay? So I think they, well, for sure, Xunzi is atheist, let's put this way, okay? He will not perform something to praise God, let's put this way, okay? Heaven, okay? Confucius will be different. He will be religious person. If you force me to say something, so Confucius will respect heaven. Let's put it this way. Okay, that's the simple answer on that. So before we go to the, anyone have any comment or question before I move on for the political view?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the music and the rituals. I think that it's really interesting that Junzi that he said about the music, how it affects our moralism. And I agree that when you look at the type of music and a particular demographic of people who listen to it, for instance, like they said that rock music or like today's drill rap music is very low vibrational, and that now the younger generation listens to that, but it also causes them to become more violent, and also like to fail in school. And I think it was a Japanese person who did like a research on water, and they found that like certain music, like rock music or like low vibrational music, changed the molecular structure of the water to like ugly figures. But when you played like soft music, relaxing music, beautiful music, that the structures that was caught under the microscope were beautiful. So that's what I thought about when you were talking about rituals and music.
Thank you. Okay, but we are of course just I forget who asked the question about K-pop. Okay, so we don't know. Okay, is that really good for education or not? I really don't know. But during that time when they talk about music, they talk about classic music. Remember, they talk about the Book of Old. That's like 500-600 years before then. Okay, even thousands before that. So it's from the ancient time. So I really don't know. So the part about political, okay, Confucius, the political philosophy, most important is rectification of name. So according to Confucius, Confucius, the person, right? The social order to keep, you should reserve the name. He talked about the Lord should behave as a Lord. The minister should behave like a minister. Father behave like a father. Son behave like a son. Okay, so you have your social role. You have to play your social role according to the name you give. Okay, so that's Confucius argument, totally moral. Okay, and then Mencius further developed this one because Mencius has been advised to a lot of powerful feudal lord. So he keep telling, okay, the feudal lord, he talk about the difference between sage king, okay, and the hegemon lord, okay. So that's Mencius' argument. Xunzi's argument is totally logic, okay, because he take the rectification of name from the logic point of view. So he take a totally different turn. So before I go to Xunzi's argument, I need to quickly introduce the theory of the one fundamental idea in the ancient Chinese time is the name and the actuality. Chinese call Ming and the Shi. Okay, this one is probably very similar with the Western philosophy, right? When we say Confucius is a teacher, or we say Socrates is a philosopher, right? Confucius or Socrates is actuality, right? That's the thing. It's there. It's a subject, right? Teacher, philosopher, which is the name. So the name is or you want to call it a predicate, right? And then it's a universal, not particular, right? Socrates is a particular person. Philosopher is a universal name. Confucius is a particular person, and teacher is a universal name. So that's the difference. So the job, if we talk about logic in the ancient Chinese, right? They are talking about how does the relationship between the subject and the predicate, or how's the relationship between name and the actuality. So according to Confucius, right, you are father. The actuality is behave like a father. So you have the social role, that's the name, and you should practice to right thing about this name. That's Confucius' moral argument. So we will see how Xunzi argue, okay, about this one. So here I bring a few Feng Youlan's summary of this. First, on page 151, okay, the blue text is written by Feng Youlan. Because the interests of these two thinkers, basically talking about Confucius and Mencius, were purely ethical, because they think in the ethical way. Their application of the rectification of name are likewise confined primarily to the sphere of ethics. Xunzi, however, because remember, Xunzi probably is 200-300 years after Confucius, about 70 years after younger than Mencius. The environment is different, right? That's a warring state, the end of warring state. Live in an age of the school of name. People start to debate, argue, right? Hence, his theory of rectification of name possesses logical as well as ethical interest. So here, his argument is names were made in order to denote actuality. On the one hand, as to make evident that the distinction between superior and inferior, okay, the social order, right? And on the other hand, to distinguish similarity and difference. So names are originally partly for ethical and partly for logical, right? Because the ethical is from the superior and the inferior. That's to keep the social order. And also have a logical aspect, similarity and the different. So that's important. And the similarity and the different is the part Confucius and Mencius never pay attention. That's he start to pay attention. So since Xunzi noticed the difference, the similarity and the differences, right? He was able to develop his theory of name, right? There are no names necessarily appropriate themselves. Name is just name, right? That's empty, no contents. Names were named by convention, but when the convention having been established, it has become customary, and it is called appropriate name, right? So go back to his tied to his theory of ritual or rites, right? The name is developed from customary, from convention, right? And the formula put this comment: all names are man-made. It's not like heavenly name, basically the name, all created by people. When they were in the process of invention, there was no reason why an actuality should be designated by one particular name rather than the other. So in another way, the name Lord, Minister, Father, and the Son doesn't have its own meaning. The meaning is outside. There's no intrinsic meaning of the word. Okay, you can call Father whatever language you want to use. The meaning is not inside this word. The meaning is outside. How we practice is more important. So based on this, he can develop his political theory, right? Based is he talking about when the king had a regulated name, the name are fixed and actuality are fixed, distinguished. Their principle was thus able to be carried out, and there could be known, and thus carefully lead the people to unity. Therefore, the making of unauthorized distinction between words and the making of new words so as thus to confuse the correct nomenclature cause the people to be in doubt and bring much litigation was called great wickedness. It was a crime like that of using false credential or false major. Okay, so thus the invention of new men and the determination of their meaning is the function of the ruler of government. So from this, you can start to smell, okay, the beginning of legalism, right? So unlike Confucius and the Mencius, when they talk about name, it's totally moral, okay? And Xunzi bring this name from the moral to logic to the actuality. So the name itself has no meaning. The meaning is how it practiced. And then again, the government, the ruler, one of their function is define the name, right? So government or ruler can put a name. So that's beginning of the legalism thinking. Okay, that's the one of the reasons his student Han Fei, we will introduce next time, become the legalism, because when you take this argument to the government, then you will realize, yes, the best way to ruling a state, to govern a state, is well define every single name, right? What's the captain need to do? What's the farmer need to do? What's the general need to do? What's the minister need to do? Which I just have the well defined, and the people just follow, and the plus reward and the punishment. Then everything will work. So that's a legalism, and we will talk about next time. But Xunzi would disagree on the reward and the punishment. He talking about learning. Okay, he doesn't talk about reward and punishment. But when you add the element of reward and punishment, you will easily change Xunzi's argument into the legalism argument. That's the end of this part. So we have a last part to talk, and then I think we are doing the time very well, and we have the 10 minutes left. So question, comment before I move on to the very last part. Okay, so I will talk about the last part, and which is talking about criticism on other schools. And I think this one is very important, and Feng Youlan also includes this part. And I'm not going to the detail on this one, fallacy of other school. So basically, this one, three things. This one is included in the Feng Youlan's writing on the very last part. Okay, talk about how Xunzi argued against school of names, because during that time, school of names is the most popular school. So he wanted to talk about. And if you remember, right, during the time, the most famous people in the school of name, one is Hui Shi. He talked about relativism. He talked about mountain and valley are the same height, because just like Pythagoras, right? When before the six foot man, and I say, oh, Jason is a short guy. With a young kids, I say, hey, Jason is a tall guy. So tall and short is the same, right? Same person. That's Hui Shi's argument, relative argument. And the Gongsun Longzi also have the argument about the name, right? Famously, the white horse is not horse. So I'm not going to the detail, but Xunzi organized this kind of argument to three categories, right? You talk about the fallacy of corrupting name with name. Example, to kill a robber is not to kill a name, because you confuse, okay, the name, robber and the man, okay? So, second, the fallacy of corrupting name with actuality. This one is argue against the Hui Shi, the relatives, because you got confused, right? You talk about mountain and abysses, right? They are the same level, but you just corrupt the name with the actuality. Third thing is the fallacy of corrupting actuality with names, like white horse is not horse, right? Because you just confuse people with the actual horse, okay, with the name, okay. So that's his argue against school of name. The thing I want to talk about more, which is not included in Feng Youlan's writing, is his chapter 6, against 12 master, or sometimes translated as against the 12 philosophers. I think this chapter is very interesting. I personally like this one, so I include this part here. So Xunzi argued against every single philosophy, okay? Every single philosopher, what he can do, okay? So 12 philosophers, he just pick up 12, and then it's 6 pairs, okay? So basically, he argued against the 6 schools. First, he argued against the Taoism, right? He talking about they are indulging one's emotion, behaving like a beast. Okay, if you remember, okay, Xunzi, right? When his wife died, and he can still singing. Okay, so he just like no different than animal. Okay, so that's his argument. Second part, I probably call it the zealot, okay, or radical. During that time, there are some people to try to achieve his name, his reputation. For example, Shi Qiu, that's another person. He want to recommend something to his lord, but the lord will not listen. And when he died, he asked his son, don't bury him, just leave him outside. This kind of person, okay, he care about his name, okay, but go to the extreme. That's the second pair, okay, people. He argued, he bring the example of two people, okay. I'm not going to introduce the people, okay, but third one, he argued against the Moism, okay. He talked about Mo Di and Song Yang, okay. They ignore the social difference, okay. Moism famously talking about the universal love, okay. Love everybody the same. So that means there's no social differences, okay. No social order to the ranking. That's his argument. He argued about legalism. Even we said, okay, his student become legalism, but he also argued against the legalism. He said the legalism, they create the law, but they don't follow the law. Okay, they put too much on the strategy, okay, and not really follow the law. Number 5, he argued school of name. Of course, he talked about Hui Shi, and because he talked about this one is totally sophistry, useless argument. And we have the example on the previous section. All right. So why he talk about 12 masters, 12 philosophers, and bring 5 pair, 10 philosophers? He really want to argue is Mencius, his own school, Confucianism. He bring up the person, Zhi, who is Confucius' grandson, and the Mencius, okay, these 2 masters in Confucian school. He talk about, you may think about he may criticize Mencius' argument of human nature is good. No, it's not that important. The most important mistake Mencius make is following the ancient kings without knowing their reason. Okay, I think that's a very good argument, because when Mencius, even Confucius talk about ancient king, he just say that's the ancient people do it. We need to do it. They didn't give a reason. And then Xunzi, as a great philosopher, in my opinion, he give the reason. He tell people why we need to follow this one. So that's the one Xunzi write this chapter. On the surface is against the 12 master, but the purpose is argue against Mencius. That's my opinion, and that's why I put this one. So finally, I bring to Xunzi the influence. That's the conclusion by Hong Youlan in the book, if you read it. Okay, and I think the writing is pretty good on the very last paragraph. So I'm going to read here and finish today's session. Among Xunzi's disciples, the 2 most famous are Li Shi and Han Fei, both of whom were to have great influence on Chinese history. Okay, Han Fei we're going to talk about next week, not next week, 2 weeks from now. Okay, the legalism. Li Shi later became prime minister of the emperor of Qin dynasty, the man who finally forcefully united China in 221 BC. Together with his master, Qin Shi Huang, the emperor, he labored not only for political but an ideological unification as well, a movement which culminated in the burning of books in 213 BCE. So become a tyranny. The other disciple, Han Fei, became a leading figure in legalist school, which supplied the theoretical justification for this political and ideological unification. The idea of this school will be described in the next chapter. That means chapter 14, we will talk about this one. So thank you, everyone. And then we finish today's on time. I think we have 1 minute left. Okay, and I will stay here for a few longer if you have any question, comment, and then Thank you, everyone, for
Thank you so much for doing this. I just wanted to stop in and say thank you for everything. This was very, very informative, and I will be part of next week's event.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will be here for a few minutes. If you have comment, please. Okay, I will stop recording.